Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Private Jessica Chiduna. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand for the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and in operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private James Commins. James Commins was born in Orange, New South Wales in 1875, the son of Thomas and Bridget Commins. Known as Jim, he attended St Stanislaus College in Bathurst, where he excelled in his studies. On finishing school, he returned to Orange and worked as a labourer at Dalton Brothers, a local large-scale retailer. He was also a member of the local rifle club. In August 1916, Commins travelled to Dubbo to volunteer for service in the Australian Imperial Force. He completed a brief initial period of training in Australia before sailing for England at the end of October. Once in England, he spent the winter months training in the army camps on Salisbury Plain. In the spring of 1917, he sailed for France, joining his unit, the 24th Australian Infantry Battalion, at the front in mid-April. Cummins joined the 24th Battalion as the men were preparing for a major assault on the occupied French village of Bullecourt. This village was part of the heavily fortified German position known to the Allies at the Hindenburg Line. British and Australian troops had attempted to capture Bullecourt about a month earlier and failed. Cummins and his unit spent the rest of April learning how to cut barbed wire entanglements, how to use the most modern gas masks, and attending lectures on the main objectives and viewing photographs of the key points in the landscape. Before dawn on the morning of the 3rd of May 1917, the 24th Battalion attacked, alongside many other Australian and British units. Cummins and his unit had initial successes under heavy enemy machine gun fire. They quickly captured the first two lines of German trenches, but then experienced fierce counterattacks over the rest of the day. During the attack, Cummins was killed. He was 42 years old. After the battle, there were differing stories of how Cummins had died. Some men in his unit said he had been killed in the first charge, but one remembered having been isolated in a captured German trench with Cummins, who had not made it out. As a result of the confusion, Cummins was initially reported as missing in action. It was only in January 1918, 8 months after the battle, that his mother Bridget was given the official news that her son had been killed. Cummins's remains were later identified by his identity disc. He is now buried in Quant Road Cemetery in northern France, alongside more than 2,300 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War. Two of Cummins's brothers also served in the AIF. His younger brother Francis was in the 53rd Battalion and had been killed in northern France about a month before Jim was killed. His older brother, Sergeant Patrick Cummins, served with the Australian General Base Depot in France and returned to Australia in 1918. Private James Cummins is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Cummins, who gave his life for us, for our freedom, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.